Many years ago, in the beautiful fishing village of Kinyansini in Zanzibar, there lived a young lady named Salma. Salma was just 20 years old, but she was so beautiful. Her skin was soft like sea breeze. Her voice was gentle, and she always smiled at everyone. She was well-mannered, respectful, and the pride of her parents. Salma had a boyfriend whose name was Jabari. Jabari was a simple village boy that had also grown up with her. He was 24 years old but was very hardworking and focused and was deeply in love with Salma. And even though he was a mere fisherman and didn't earn so much, he made sure to bring Salma fresh fish every single evening. And he made sure to save money, no matter how little, from what he earned to build a future with her. He would usually look at her and say, Salma, yes, I may not have a car or big money, but I have love. I love you so much, and I will never leave you. I will take very good care of you if you agree to be my wife. Jabari would say very lovingly, and Salma would always blush when he said that. She would hold his hand tightly and reply and say, even if a prince comes from the town, I will still choose you. You're the love of my life, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Salma would reply, everyone in the village believed that they would get married. Even their parents had accepted their relationship. Jabari was already saving little by little so that he would have enough money to pay her bride price in 2 years. Everything was going on just fine until one day Daniel came. Daniel was a US tourist. He had arrived the village to spend summer. He had blue eyes, white skin, and golden hair. And he wore expensive sunglasses, sprayed sweet perfumes, and dressed like those men in foreign movies. He was also very calm, gentle, and polite. But what made people respect him most was the fact that he had a lot of money. By the time Daniel would convert his American dollars into Tanzanian shillings, he would have so much money that he could even buy things without bargaining. One day, he came to Salma's jewelry stand and bought all her necklaces without even asking for a discount. Salma was shocked. And on top of that, oh, he told her to keep the change. And from that moment, Salma was attracted to him. Daniel still came back the next day and the day after. And this time, he even came with gifts, body lotions, chocolates, clothes, and things that he had brought from the US. And he still gave her money on top. He told her that she was very beautiful, special, and that she deserved so much more than staying in a mere village. So he began to promise her a better life in the US, telling her that she would get a green card and be living like a queen in the US. And soon enough, Salma bought his dreams. She began to change. She stopped meeting Jabari at the beach. She literally started avoiding her longtime boyfriend. She stopped replying to his text messages and she even started dressing differently, using foreign perfumes and applying light makeup, things that Daniel had given her. Jabari noticed and became very worried. Salma, what is going on? You've been behaving very strangely. Did I do something wrong? Did I offend you? Jabari asked, his eyes filled with tears. Oh no, nothing. You did not do anything. I just want more out of this life. I'm tired of being a village girl. Is that too much to ask? Salma replied coldly as she walked away. So things continued like this for a while. So Salma continued to avoid the love of her life, Jabari, and then began to spend more time with the foreign tourist, Daniel. And it was only a matter of time for rumors to begin to spread. The villagers began to whisper, that girl is following that white man. Oh. The villagers said amongst themselves. One day, Mama Shida, her mother's friend, called Salma to advise her and said, Salma, you need to be careful. Tourists would come and would go, but your own man is here. Do not leave gold and chase silver. A bird in hand is better than two in the bush. Mama Shilda said, looking very worried. But Salma simply replied her and said, thank you, Mama, for the advice. But Salma did not listen. Instead, she continued to spend all her time with Daniel. One evening, Daniel took her to a fancy resort by the sea. They sat by the poolside and he told her stories about America and how she would enjoy life over there if she followed him. He promised to take her to the US and give her a much more better life. Selma would smile excitedly. Her head was being filled with hopes and dreams. So after Daniel was done brainwashing her, Selma fell head over heels in love with him. But as time went by, Daniel started asking her to sleep with him. Initially, she refused because she had been keeping her virginity for her husband to be, which at that time was Jamari. But a few days later, after refusing to give in to Daniel's advances, then Daniel stopped visiting her stall and started hanging out with other ladies who were throwing themselves at him for free. Selma became very jealous and very worried. She did not want to lose Daniel or lose her chances at having a better life in the US. She wanted to escape her small village. She wanted to see the world. She wanted to experience all that Daniel had told her about the United States. So she knew that she had to act fast. So that night, she went to his lodge and she gave him her virginity, all in a bid to win his love and affection back. The next morning, she looked at herself in the mirror happily and then said, "Ah, Salma, my life is about to change for good. I have given Daniel something priceless that all these other loose ladies cannot give him. Now Daniel is mine forever." Salma said to herself excitedly. She was so happy. She was convinced that she had found true love. And it worked because Daniel was now all over her just like before. He stopped chasing all these other small girls that were throwing themselves at him. So as the days went by, her relationship with Jabari deteriorated. She ignored him completely. Even her own mother no longer welcomed Jabari into their home any longer because of Daniel and all the hopes and dreams that he had filled Salma's head with. Salma's mother had even started daydreaming of how she would go and be visiting her daughter in the US. So she encouraged her daughter to leave Jabari for good. One evening, Jabari had gone to visit Salma in their home. But to his surprise, Salma's mother warned him never to come back to their house again, saying, "Salma is no longer on your level. Please leave my daughter alone. She has a better life now. There are 1001 ladies that will be willing to accept you in your state. Please and please leave my daughter alone." Salma's mother would scream angrily at Jabari. Jabari was broken and even started crying. He could not understand how everything had changed so suddenly. The girl who once held his hand and promised to wait for him and had even told him that even if a prince came into their village, that she would still stay by him, was now acting like a total stranger. And her mother that he had bought gifts for times without number was now being very hostile to him. So things continued like this for a while. Salma was busy enjoying her Americana love, spending time with him and making him happy, while her boyfriend Jabari was broken and sad. Then one day, out of the blues, Daniel disappeared. Salma went to the hotel where he had been staying, only to find out that he had checked out and flown back to the US. No goodbyes, no letter, no explanation, no final words, nothing. Salma was so broken. She cried for days. She even refused to eat. She would just sit on her bed holding the necklace that he had given her, hoping that he would call or return. But weeks passed and nothing happened. Then one day, all of a sudden, Selma started vomiting. She felt very weak, dizzy, and confused. She realized that she had just missed her period. So out of fear, she went to visit Mama Asha, the old herbalist in the village, who confirmed her worst fears. "Selma, my daughter, you are pregnant," Mama Asha said to her kindly. Selma fell to the ground and screamed and screamed. Everything that she once had, her good name, her dreams, her respect, everything had disappeared into thin air. Selma cried non-stop. A few weeks later, and she had started vomiting non-stop. And her parents found out that she was pregnant. They were so angry, shocked, and disappointed. The first few months of her pregnancy, Salma hid herself in her home, refusing to go out. But she could not hide herself forever. And soon, the entire village found out that Salma was pregnant and they mocked her. Even the little children pointed at her stomach and laughed. The same villagers that used to praise her for her beauty were now calling her different names. Even Jabari could not even look at her. He was disappointed. Salma had become the shame of Kinyasini, and still Daniel had not called her since he fled Zanzibar. She no longer walked with confidence, and when she passed through the village, women would shake their heads. The same young girls that were envying her that she was using foreign perfumes, they would point at her and laugh hysterically. She could not even sit among her mates any longer. She avoided the beach, the market, and even her mother's eyes. Her father barely spoke to her. And sometimes, in the middle of the night, Salma would go outside and just sit down, rubbing her stomach and speaking to herself. Daniel, where are you? Daniel, why did you do this to me? This is not what you promised me. You promised me heaven. You said you loved me. Why did you leave me like this? I've become a shame to my whole village, to my parents. Salma would say as she cried. She literally cried herself to sleep every night. And for the next 5 months, things continued like this for Salma. Her belly had grown very big. Her waist bead was no longer even her size. And her smile had completely disappeared. But one Sunday afternoon, something happened. A beautiful car drove into their compound, and a tall, fair-skinned man with blue eyes stepped out. It was Daniel. Daniel was back, and he did not come back empty-handed. He came back with gifts and with smile plastered all over his face, as if he had not done anything wrong. Then he looked at Salma and said, I came back for you. I heard from the hotel staff that you were pregnant with my child, and I had to come back for you. Daniel said, smiling. Salma was shocked, she was happy, yet she was upset at the same time. She did not know whether to cry for joy or to scream at him angrily for abandoning her for months. But regardless of how she felt, she ran into his arms and hugged him tightly. Her parents were also happy because Daniel returning for their daughter meant that he had come to wipe away the shame that Salma's pregnancy had brought to their family. So later that evening, Daniel sat down with Salma's parents and said, I want to take her with me to the US. She's carrying my child. She should be with me. I want to marry her and make her life better. I would even give her a green card, and your lives will change for good, and you will never remain poor again. Daniel said to them excitedly. Salma's mother was so happy. She screamed and danced. Oh, my God has remembered us. But her father did not really trust Daniel. For crying out loud, a man that could abandon a woman without even saying goodbye was not to be trusted. But then he looked at his daughter's swollen belly, and he did not have any other choice because her staying at home, pregnant out of wedlock, was a thing of shame to the family. So he just reluctantly gave his blessing. So 1 month later, and Salma gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. And a few weeks after that, Salma flew out of Zanzibar with Daniel, believing that she was going to a better land, that her shame was behind her and a new life awaited her. As she sat in the airplane, she was filled with so much hope, unknown to her that hope would die the moment that they landed. They landed in Texas, and the airport was so huge, bright and beautiful. Salma had never seen anything like that all her life. And the ambience alone convinced Salma that Daniel was going to take her to a very beautiful home. But from the airport, they took a train, then a bus. Then they began to walk and walk and walk before they now entered a narrow street with broken houses and strange smells in the air. Where are we? Salma asked, looking very confused. My place, that is where we are, Daniel said as he unlocked the rusty gates. Salma simply stepped inside and froze. The house was small, dirty, dark. There were even rats running around her feet. Everywhere was looking so tattered. Salma was shocked. Then she turned to him and said, but I thought. Salma stammered as tears began to stream down her eyes. You thought what? Shebi, I told you I had a place. This is where I live, so get comfortable. Daniel replied. Salma sat down. She was speechless. That night she could not sleep. She stared at the ceiling. She was holding back tears. But when she woke up the next morning, she realized that she was not dreaming. No. This was her new reality. Daniel was not rich. As a matter of fact, he was jobless. He survived on government support and even borrowed money. So all that money that he was spending in Zanzibar, part of it was a loan that he had loaned from friends, and the other part was money that he had saved for months just so he could live like a king during the holidays. Salma was broken. She did not know what to do. And to make matters worse, no one in the neighborhood even greeted her. She could not even understand their accent. They were too fast. And the whole place was cold. And the food tasted like nothing. It was not what she was used to. Yet, Daniel still expected her to cook, clean, and take care of the baby every single day. And soon, Daniel began to show his true character. He started shouting at her. He would tell her that she's lazy. He would insult her anytime she asked for help. He would say things like, is this how you women act? Is this how African women act? Why did I come back to that village to rescue you and marry you? You just want to eat food without working. What is wrong with you? Daniel would scream angrily at Salma. Salma was shocked. She had never seen this part of Daniel at all. And Daniel did not even provide for her and their son, because Salma still had to make ends meet. She was now doing laundry for strangers. She was cleaning people's houses just so she could buy diapers for her child. Sometimes they would even eat only bread and water before going to bed. Daniel was an irresponsible man. He would even disappear for hours and he would come back home smelling of alcohol. And to make matters worse, he soon started beating her, abusing her verbally and emotionally. Salma cried every night. She would carry her baby and speak to herself saying, what did I do to myself? I left my home. I left Tanzania, Zanzibar for this nonsense. What kind of mistake did I make? I thought America is supposed to be beautiful, a land of opportunities, a land of dreams. How can I be living with rats? What have I done? Salma would say to herself crying. But a few months later, and Salma had made some Tanzanian friends in the neighborhood who she would usually go and cry to each time Daniel maltreated her, and they would comfort her, asking her to be patient with him. One day, Salma asked Daniel for money to make her hair. Since she landed in the US, she had not even gone to a salon to make her hair. But instead of Daniel giving her money, he shouted at her and told her to go and cut her hair instead. Salma was now looking like a shadow of herself. She had lost all her beauty. She even began to regret why she came to the US. Because back at home in Tanzania, she lived a better life in her village than the one she was living in the US. In the US, she could not even afford to eat 2 square meals. She was living in a house infested with rats. But back in the village, she ate fresh meals. As a matter of fact, she could eat 6 times a day if she wanted. Back in Tanzania, the air was fresh. Everything was fresh. She was happy. Here in the US, everywhere was smelling wee-wee. Where she was living, everywhere was tattered. And she began to wish that she could go back. But Salma lived with Daniel for 1 full year. And one day she could not take it any longer. One night, she made the decision that she was going back to Zanzibar. So 3 days later, with the help of her new Tanzanian friends, Auntie Rehema and another Tanzanian family who paid for her plane tickets, Salma boarded a flight back to Zanzibar. She was no longer the same girl that had left for the US. Instead, she came back to Zanzibar broken, exhausted and filled with shame. When Salma stepped off the airplane, she felt the warm breeze of Zanzibar hit her skin. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. It felt like freedom. Yes, she had no money, she had no job, she had no degree, but at least she was home. There was nothing like home. She was safe here and she knew it. Upon getting to her parents' house, they were not expecting her. She had not even told them that she was coming back home because she was so ashamed. But when she knocked at the door, her mother screamed and dropped the bowl that she was washing. Salma, Salma, what are you doing here? Then her father stepped out slowly, staring at her from head to toe. Her clothes were looking old and faded. Her lips were dry. She had lost that glow, that youthful glow that she had. But her mother hugged her tightly regardless. Her mother cried because from the way her daughter looked, she knew that she had been through hell. Meanwhile, her father could not even speak for a while. He just simply shook his head and walked back into the house. Salma sat down that night and told her mother everything that she had been through. How Daniel had lied and deceived her, telling her that he was very wealthy in the US, not knowing that he was a pauper, living on government support. She told her mother about how he abused her, how they went to bed hungry sometimes, all the pain that she had to endure. Her mother wept and just simply stared at her and said, "My dear, you are back now. You will be fine. You are safe. You are home. There's nowhere like home." And Salma nodded, but deep inside, she was so ashamed of herself. A few days later, news of her return had spread round the village. Everyone knew that Salma was back. And 2 weeks after that, Salma had to go to the local market to help her mother sell her goods. And as she stood behind the table arranging her mother's goods, she heard someone call out her name, Salma. Then she turned around and lo and behold, it was Jabari, her boyfriend. But this was not the Jabari that she remembered. This one was tall, was confident, was wearing clean clothes, polished shoes, a gold wristwatch, looking like he had money. He was no longer timid. He looked strong and wise. And to crown it all, he was standing beside a beautiful car, his own car. And for the next few minutes, they just stared at each other. Selma was ashamed. She tried to cover it with a smile. But before she knew what was happening, she started crying. Then Jabari broke the silence and said, "I heard you're back and I heard everything. But you do not need to be ashamed of yourself. It's okay," Jabari said kindly. But Salma simply bowed her head in shame. She wanted the ground to open up and swallow her. But then she replied Jabari and said, "I'm sorry, Jabari. I didn't know better. I didn't know better. And I can see that you've done so well for yourself. I'm so sorry." Salma replied in shame. Then a few minutes later, a beautiful young lady joined Jabari by his side, then looked at him and said, "Is this the Salma that you told me about?" The young lady asked, referring to Salma. Salma was so ashamed of herself. She wanted the ground to open up and swallow her. But no way, she was there for it all. Jabari simply nodded and replied, "Yes, that is her." Then the woman smiled back and reached out her hand and shook Salma and then said, "Nice to finally meet you. I have heard so much about you. I'm Nuru, Jabari's fiancée, and our wedding is in 3 weeks. You should come. You should come." Nuru said, smiling. Salma was so sad. She didn't know what to do. She just smiled weakly and told Nuru, "Congratulations." Jabari, on the other hand, just nodded politely and told her, "All right, Salma, take care of yourself." Then they got into their car and drove off. Salma stood there in the middle of the market, tears streaming down her eyes. The man that she had left had become everything that she wanted in life. He was now wealthy, he was rich, he was clean, he was attractive. But now he belonged to someone else. Everything about Salma had changed. She was no longer confident and people no longer related with her with smiles. Instead, everywhere she went, she could feel that people were talking about her. Sometimes she would even hear them say things like, look at this one that went abroad and came back with nothing. She dumped Jabari and returned with a child and shame. Now look at the man that she dumped. One of the most richest men in our village. Maybe she thought that white men were the answer. White men were the prize. Now she has learned the hard way. The villagers would gossip about her. But Salma did not respond to their gossip. She did not even have the strength to fight. She was tired, physically, emotionally, mentally. All she wanted now was just to survive one day as it comes. So every day, she started helping her mother at the market. Some days she would sell well, and other days she would return home without making any sales. Her father was still very upset with her. He did not even speak to her. He had not forgiven her for what she had done to their family name. Now, Salma had no friends. She was always on her own. But the hardest part of all the things that she had to face was the fact that her ex-boyfriend Jabari just lived a few blocks away from her house. So every time she passed his new and beautiful mansion, she felt a part of her heart break. She heard that Jabari had even opened a successful fish processing company, that he now even employed over 15 young men from their village. All the villagers respected him, and even the elders called him a true son of the soil. And his fiancée Nuru, that one was everything that Salma used to dream of becoming. Jabari sent her to school, and she became educated, confident, and loved. Sometimes Salma would even secretly watch them from a distance while they laughed and walked hand in hand, going to church together. But deep inside her, she was bleeding. She tried to move on, but she could not. Each night, she would lie beside her son, staring at the ceiling and asking God for forgiveness. She would keep on saying, if I could go back, if I could turn back the hands of time, I would never have left Jabari. I would never have left Zanzibar. Truly, the grass is not always greener on the other side, and a bird at hand is worth more than 10,000 birds in the bush. So while Salma continued to raise her son in peace and support her mother's business, no young man in the village ever asked for her hand in marriage because nobody wanted to marry her, especially after the shame that she had brought to her family and to the community. Meanwhile, Jabari and his wife Nuru lived happily ever after. Hi besties, it's your favorite storyteller, Omalicha. Thank you so much for watching my story to the end. So I think in this story, there are a lot of moral lessons to take away, and I'd like to hear what moral lessons you learned from this story. But for me, I think I learned that life is not always greener on the other side. Look at Salma. She was thinking that the United States was where her breakthrough would be. The sweet baby girl life that she dreamt of having could only happen in the United States. But lo and behold, United States became a nightmare for her. And, Jabari, her boyfriend, did well in Tanzania and actually prospered in Tanzania. And that baby girl lifestyle that she was looking for, someone else, Nuru, came and enjoyed it, still in Tanzania, without ever traveling abroad. So please share your thoughts with me. What are the moral lessons that you learned from this story? And what do you think? Do you think that Salma deserved, all that she got, the disappointment and every other thing? I'd like to hear your thoughts. And please support your home girl, Omalicha, by subscribing to my channel, liking my videos, and sharing with your loved ones. So now, till I come your way again with more interesting stories, bye!